So as we're talking about reproducibility, we've just talked about data and how to be smart and reproducible about where you put your data. I want to briefly mention how we handle packages, which is kind of the other external thing that a collaborator might need to know about your code. First of all, as you've seen already, to use a package, you need to install it. And we use this function install.packages and then put the name of the package in quotes, or in this case, the tidyverse is actually a collection of packages that we'll all install if we put it in quotes. You only need to install your packages once, at least once per copy of R. Sometimes you reinstall when you update R. But you do not need to do this every single time you want to use the package. It's like teaching R how to use this new functionality. Once you've done it once, you don't have to do it again. You can use update.packages if you want, if you've maybe updated R, or maybe you're worried that the package has a newer version available. It's also okay to just use install.packages to reinstall that package. However, I want to be super clear that you absolutely only need to install this package once. Do not ever let me catch you putting an install.packages or an update.packages into your source file, into your R Markdown file. Because what's happening if you do that? Every time you run that code chunk, R is going to re-download all the package information, reinstall the whole package all over again. And every time you hit knit and it reruns all the chunks, it is going to restall all over again. So this is a waste of your time. This is a waste of your computer's energy. It's going to slow down your knitting process. It's just duplication that is unnecessary. It's also going to keep your R Markdown file from knitting, but that's not the main reason not to do this. What you do need to do every time is load your package. So you only teach R to use the package once by installing it. But then what you have to do is let R know, hey, you know those packages I just taught you? I'm about to use some of them in this particular analysis. And the way you do this is with the function library. You will also see the function require out there. The difference between these two functions I want you to be aware of, even though we're only using library. So what happens if I pick up your code, I try to run it, and I don't have the package that you have tried to library up? Well, what's going to happen with library is I'm going to get an error. It's going to say, error, this package has not been installed. And this is actually good, right? Errors, they're frustrating, we don't like when we hit them, but they're helpful. We want R to give us errors when something's going wrong. And so I'm going to get this error that says, hey there, you don't have that package. And I'm going to go, well, shucks, guess I better go install that package so that I can run this person's code. Require also loads up the package if it is installed, but if it's not installed, it's just going to return false. And so it's not going to throw an error, it's not going to break the code is not going to break until you hit the point where you needed that package and you didn't have it. So you should always use library. Require is basically just for being a developer, a software developer. There's some very strange circumstances where you might need it. We are never going to need it in this class. We always use library. I just want to make you aware because some people don't know this difference, and you'll probably see a lot of code from other people that uses require instead. In principle, they both do the same thing. They both load up the package, just different behavior if that particular package happens to not yet be installed. So notice when we say library, we don't put quotes around the package name, like here, library tidyverse. It's just the way the function works. So install.packages needs quotes, library does not. Now, having said that, I just want to prime you right now on 3 things that I find really annoying about packages. These are problems that are outside the scope of the class. I won't test you on them. I am not saying that these are things that you need to learn deeply. I just want to let you know they exist so that if you do run into them, it's not quite as confusing or frustrating. The first is to do with versions. So as I said, R is constantly updating. People are constantly writing new code. Packages get updated. And that's a good thing, right? We want these packages to keep up with the times. We want them to work with newer versions of R. We want new functionality added. Things are faster. This is great. But what it means is that if you have old code written on an old version of the package, and then you update your package, but you haven't changed your code at all, suddenly your code is working differently. And so there are ways to tell, again, which package is stable, what's likely to change, and so forth. It's outside the scope of this class. But if you find yourself mystified saying, I didn't change my code at all and it doesn't work anymore, you might wonder if you've updated the package and so something's a little different with that function. Next up, packages have dependencies. If I go out and write a package and I say to myself, man, I love dplyr. I want to use dplyr in what I'm writing for my own functions for my package. Well, that means that you can't use my package unless you also have dplyr installed. Now, fortunately, the package should take care of this for you. And so if you install a package, in principle it's going to install all the dependencies. And if you load a package with library, in principle it's going to load all the dependencies. But I do see every now and then these weird situations that are more common than they ought to be, where for some reason the dependency doesn't install and you have to manually type install.packages, whatever. So if you have a package that won't install and it keeps saying, I can't install because I don't have some other package name like dplyr, then just go ahead and install them one by one. It'll work out. I don't know why it does this, but be aware that what's happening there is the package you want needed some other packages. Lastly, and probably most nefariously, is this idea of conflicts. So here's what's going on with a conflict. I could decide I'm going to write a package, and I'm going to have a function in this package called dance. And you could decide you're also going to write a package, and you also want your function to be called dance. And someone else goes out there and says, wow, I've loaded these two packages, Kelly's package and random YouTube viewer's package. And now I've tried to use the function dance, and R says, whose version should I use? Everyone is allowed to name functions whatever the heck they want. You could sit down right now and write a function called dance. How does R know what you're actually asking it to do? And it's pretty annoying, because what happens here is that the version that was loaded first takes precedence. So in this example here, I've just made a silly data frame with two columns, Bob and Joe, and I'm trying to use select, which we just learned about in dplyr, to select just the Bob column. And I've used this correctly in principle. There's no errors in this line of code right here. But what happened is that somewhere in my analysis, I was also using this package called mass. This is a pretty common package for a lot of multivariate statistics. And I loaded mass first, and mass has a function called select. So R basically learned mass's version of select, and then dplyr came along, and R said, I already know how to do select. And so what it's doing right here is that it's trying to use the wrong version of select. It's trying to use the version from mass. And the version from mass doesn't expect this argument. The version from mass gets confused. It works very differently. It does a totally different thing from the dplyr select. Another really common conflict is the verb filter. Filter also has a commonly used statistical package with a really different meaning of that word. And so you can't fix this, and it's hard to fix. Once your packages are loaded, they're loaded. So here I've switched the order, but because I already had both of them loaded up, mass is still winning. When I try to load dplyr again, it doesn't matter. R is like, I've already loaded dplyr, I don't need to think about this. And no matter how many times you write it, R, every time it's trying to reload a package again, if it's already got that package loaded, it skips it. It's not going to overwrite. So if at your first pass you loaded them in the wrong order, it's not wrong, but the order that you didn't want to, you're kind of in trouble. The best way to fix this is to be really explicit about your package. So you've seen in some of the material that I've shared with you so far, this double colon thing, and maybe you didn't quite understand why I was using it. Here's why. When I put that double colon first, I am saying specifically inside of this package right here, I want to use the function called select. I want to use the dplyr version of select. And this one will keep from throwing an error. This one will say, ah, you meant the dplyr select. Okay, that one I know how to use. So the best thing to do, and this is especially true if your select or your filter are breaking, is to just throw that dplyr in two colons in front and see if that doesn't fix your problem. See if the conflict was the issue. Now there is one cool new package just to let you know about it, which is called the conflicted package. So if you install that and library it up, you can actually put at the top of your code, hey, every time I see select, I meant the dplyr version. And then you don't have to worry about the order of your libraries loading, and you don't have to go through and put that extra dplyr double column every time. Conflicted is going to do this for you, and it says, look, I will prefer dplyr's version of select over any other function called select that I see. So these are just some small complications to keep an eye out for. They're intended to help you out if you cannot figure out what's wrong with your code. You think that you've done it right. You're probably correct. You probably have. Maybe something strange is going on.